Many of us have had the wonderful opportunity to have known Elinor for many years. One of the things that the Chancellor did not mention, and all of us that have known Elinor for so long know so well, is that besides being the incredible scientist that she is also an unbelievable human being, and we thank her so much for being here. We will take few questions because it's been a long day, but we don't get Elinor to come every day, so we will take some questions. And please.
How are you applying your framework and approach to climate change?
In 2 minutes?
In 1 minute.
1 minute. One, I think it's misspecified in most of the models where you read that people take action in their home, in their factory, etc. There's one externality, and there's only one, and it goes global. One. Well, there are multiple externalities from many of our actions. And if we can reduce the amount of heating that we do in a home, the hot water in a home, we can reduce a lot of the costs that we're paying. It's a little fraction to the globe, but if we get networks of people doing this, and now what part of it is how we get institutional rules, and it turns out that when people have information and feedback about their use, they are much better. So in some of the competitions on dorms that now are occurring on college campus, the competition gets people anxious and they start reducing it. Oberlin has done a big job of reducing. And when they get the accurate data, so what we're looking is the action situation that actors are facing at different scales, and then how can you slowly but surely. I'm not opposed to global solutions. I'm just very discouraged about waiting.
That's a good segue into what I would like to ask about, which is the feedback mechanisms. There seems to be at least two kinds of problems. One is a sort of Hayekian knowledge problem, in which we may know that something is wrong, but for a variety of reasons, we may not know why something is wrong. Sometimes it's because it's not easy to measure the outcomes. Sometimes it's because even if the outcome is measurable, we can measure it like a thermometer that tells us we're sick, but it doesn't give us the diagnosis. And so there's a kind of complexity knowledge problem there. And then even beyond that, then there's the sort of public choice problems that there is a desire on the part of some parties to control what is learned and to message and control and manipulate the messaging around what is learned. And I'm wondering if you can reflect on some of the various solutions that you've identified about problematic areas where the feedback loop was a real difficult problem, and talk about some of the solutions that communities found to overcome those kinds of feedback loop problems.
Well, partly that's why we have the resource system and resource units as we are broadening this. Because, for example, Jim Wilson is a very fine resource economist who does a lot of modeling. And he's shown that some fisheries are truly mathematically complex. So if you are in a setting where it's a very simple system and additive, and then you decide, okay, next year we're going to take out less and we're going to do this, the year after and the year after, you potentially can get very strong feedback about whether that was successful. And a lot of systems that are not mathematically complex do that. So they meet once a year and talk about what needs to be done and what they have to change. But if the system itself is mathematically complex, they don't get accurate feedback about the results of their action because the system structure is such. And those are then, we have to recognize, much more difficult. And partly there it is, how do we get multiple scaled institutions, because sometimes you can have some small units that are very meaningful, but you need the larger. So I could go on all hour, but that's an important question.
One more question, please.
Thank you for the presentation today. So I have a question. You know that for researchers, that pure research are very important. So what would you say to the graduate student that how we challenge the conventional wisdom and to find, to pursue our idea in research, like the experience that you share, that you say to the committee that you can prove that the common resource, common poverty resource is right. Yeah. So, do you have any recommendation?
Well, the whole thesis in the book, Working Together, is that there are multiple methods that we can be using, and that none of them are the method. Again, partly some of our disciplines pose one and only one. I do think that for graduate students, experimental is a very good technique, because the amount of money that you need time and real careful design of a experiment. You can't be casual and do good experimental, but you can do it without huge field costs. On the other hand, you can then work with other graduate students and do case studies or comparative case studies where you collect new data, but you do it together in multiple locations at the same time, or meta-analysis. Those are where you're taking the case studies that have been written, but as you've indicated, as you've heard from me, meta-analysis is challenging. But you've got to have theory that you want to test, and then ask, in light of that, what's your best method, rather than there being a single way of doing it.
On behalf of the Center for New Institute of Social Sciences, Douglas North, I would like to thank everybody for such a wonderful, wonderful day. We owe a huge debt to Alana Bain, who organized it all. And of course,